Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello and welcome to the Speakers Who Get Results podcast and Strategic Speaking for Results, which is the name of my company. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the second one of 4 episodes that we're talking about how do you actually use presentation skills to become more visible and show the world how valuable you are. How do you use presentation skills to get the recognition you deserve? And of course, a huge piece of this is how do you write your script? Today, we're talking about writing a script that wows. Mark Twain said, "The difference between a word and the right word is like the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning." I've never forgotten that the first time I heard that. And indeed, the words are really what make your script memorable. And then your delivery style is how people really react to it. But you've got to have the words first. So as you can see, I'm Elizabeth Bachman of Strategic Speaking for Results. I spent 30 years directing opera around the world. I spent 11 years running an opera company. Spent over 10 years training business presenters. And I'm the host of this podcast, Speakers Who Get Results. My intention today is to help you find your topic, writing your script, and the absolute best formula for your talking points so that you really engage your audience. Our next episode is going to be about spicing up your script once you've got it. But today is about writing the first script. Now, remember, all of this is in theory. You're going to have to get help to actually get the script right, to figure out what you're going to do. That's something that doesn't happen overnight. But once you have it, you will have it forever. I encourage you to sign up for the VIP access to this program so that you can get some help on how to make this information yours. In order to get your results, as I often say, you need the right strategy. So you're talking to the right people, the people who can get you where you want, and telling them in a way that they can hear you. You need the right script, as we're talking about today. And of course, you need a confident and charismatic delivery style. All of it comes from you. They all work together, and you are the heart of it all. Now, I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, it's too much work to go out there and speak in public. Why do I have to do all this? I have a full calendar anyway." The thing is, yes, it takes time to get it right. But once you have it forever, and you can start using your script and your ideas to make a name for yourself. It's very important to make a name for yourself outside your company as well as inside your company, because the reviews and the comments from your industry that will help the people in your company who take you for granted, help them say, "Oh, she really has something to say." So yes, it is work. This is why I usually spend about 6 months with my clients. Some of them stay around for years. Yes, it's work, but like anything worth doing, it's worth taking the time to get it right. The first question I get from many of my clients is, what's my topic? How am I going to find out what do I want to talk about? What's going to be my signature speech? I go back to rule number 1. We talked about that last time. Rule number 1 is use strategic empathy to make it about them. Who are the people that you really want to reach? Who are the people who could promote you, who could follow you, who could maybe hire you for a better job? Who are they? Where do you find them? And then what do they care about? Once you know what they care about and find something that you care about that they care about, then you know what you need to talk about. Although I still got the question, yes, but what is my topic? If you already know what your topic is, just hang in there. We'll get to that in a minute. But for those of you who are still wondering, one of the best ways I know to find our topic is to indulge in some productive complaining. Yes, I'm giving you permission to complain. Think about the things in your company or your business, your industry that bother you. What are the things that annoy you? What are the things that you see people doing wrong, and how could you fix them? One of the best ways to do this is to get together with some friends and take notes, but sit around, maybe open a bottle of wine and complain. Complain and then say, of the things I'm complaining about, where could I offer a solution? What could I talk about that would, if not giving people solutions, at least help people start asking the right questions? When you start writing down the ideas, write down lots of ideas. Write them all down. One of the best ways I know is to take a big piece of paper or a whiteboard, turn off your phone, get away from the computer, and just write lots of ideas. Write down everything. Don't edit it. Don't edit anything. It has been proven that editing comes from a different part of the brain than writing. Just write. Give yourself time. One of the things I like to do is put the ideas on Postit Notes. So you can put them on Postit Notes and put them up on the wall. Put them up somewhere where you will see them during the day. Standing in front of this idea board while you're brushing your teeth, that's a great thing to do while you're brushing your teeth. Put the ideas up, let them sit there for a while. And as you start watching, as you live with those ideas, you'll see where they connect. You'll see how maybe you could boil them down into a particular theme, or maybe some various talking points. At that point, you want to put your talking points down on Postit Notes, put them back over on the board. Maybe you've got 5 talking points that would fit within a theme. And so you can narrow it down. If you find that you've got talking points that don't fit at all, they might be transitional points, or maybe they belong to another speech. That's okay. Put them aside. You'll work on them on a different speech. If you don't know where to start, choose one. What is the one topic, the one idea that will get you the most notice, that your ideal listeners will respond to? What is it that they're really going to care about? Choose one and pick your 3 top points. There again, if you've got A, B, and C here, maybe D and E are sub points, or maybe they belong to another speech, as I said. Don't lose them, just see how it works. Then you sit down to write. Start out by reverse engineering. What do you want them to do? You really want to aim everything towards a call to action. What do you want them to do or think about? I like to go back to the 5-point formula that I learned from my 8th grade English teacher. I was 13 years old and she taught us this 5-point formula and made us practice it until we understood it. So thank you, Mrs. Curtis, for sticking with me until I understood it. This is actually a formula that comes from Roman rhetoric. The first written example of this from the Romans. And that is, number 1 is your introduction. 2, 3, and 4 are your talking points A, B, and C. And 5 is the conclusion with the call to action. The very first thing you want to do is write down this outline. 1 page. What is your speech about if it's just 1 page of bullet points? Now, I know there are people who think, oh goodness, why are you putting me in a straitjacket? I don't want to be part of it. I want to be stuck to a formula. I don't want to be in a box. And I understand that. You do want to be able to be creative. However, you need to have some sort of form to your speech. You have to have some idea of where you're going to start and where you're going to end. I invite you to think about your speech like jazz. If you think of your speech like jazz, if you think of a jazz performer, a jazz ensemble, they'll have a defined beginning, they'll have a defined ending, and they'll have a basic melody that goes through, but in and around that, you can improvise. So if you think of your speech as a jazz performance, you have just enough structure to make sure you know where you're going, but you get to improvise along the way. Here's an example of an outline that I use for one of the speeches I do when I'm talking about 3 big presenting mistakes that cost you sales. This is the sort of thing that I'm often asked to do for networking groups of businesses. The introduction, I tell a little bit about my story, who I am, and I have a hook on the introduction so that it catches people's attention. Then, as I said earlier, because I think you want to break down your speech into strategy, script, and style, my first talking point is about strategy. My second talking point, my talking point B, is the script. Talking point C is the delivery style. And then I go to the conclusion, which reviews that, and the call to action, which is work with a speaker trainer, work with your coach to do this, because it's very difficult to understand it. You've got to get out of your own head and get some fresh eyes on it. So that would be an example of what a very basic version of one of my speeches. Here's a pro tip. Once you have your 5-point outline, you want to make your speaker one sheet or a flyer. This is the term for a piece of paper that advertises you, where you're going to say the title of your script, the title of your talk, and then what are 3 pain points that your audiences have. And these are your talking points turned into questions. Your talking points are then the answers to the pain points. If you have, for instance, a strategy, script, and style, the pain points might be, you don't really know where to start. So therefore you need a strategy. You don't know how to write how to use compelling language. Therefore you need help with your script. Or you get nervous. You have stage fright and you sabotage yourself because you get scared. Then I give them, my talking point C is about dealing with nerves. You can take your talking points and sort of reverse them so that to make a pain point where you can say, do you find, have you felt, are you nervous, for instance? any of these would be good ways to start your flyer because you want to get their attention right away. They'll look at the catchy title. They say, ooh, that sounds interesting. They'll read the first 3 points and say, ah, that's me. She's talking about my pain. I'm going to pay attention to this. Then you talk about what are the 3 benefits. This is what they'll walk away from. And these are the answers to your talking points, A, B, and C. Once you have the pain points and the benefits, then you have enough to create a speaker sheet, to create a flyer, and send it out to places where you would like to speak. I can guarantee you that once you have an appointment, a booking where they want you to give that speech, you will write it. So the idea is to get the outline, advertise it, find some place to do the speech, because that's what's going to make you actually write the script. Then you start to write. One of the problems many of us find, I have this problem too, is if you start at the beginning, you say, how am I going to think about this? Where do I start? It's really easy to get stuck writing the introduction over and over again. I recommend start with your conclusion and your call to action. What do you want them to do? And write that first. Then make sure that your talking points all lead up to that conclusion so that by the end of it, they're excited. They say, yes, this is where I want to do what she's telling me to do. One of the ways you can do this is with your Postit notes. Put each talking point in a different color. If you've got additional ideas that belong to, say, the green Post-it or the pink Post-it, you can put them together and then organize them. Maybe for one speech, you might have 5 talking points that are the general ones you talk about, but you alter them according to the audience. For one audience, you might use talking point A, talking point D, and talking point C. For another audience, you would use B, E, and D. You have that flexibility. You can juggle things around and mix and match as long as you know who your audience is and you're using strategic empathy to put yourself in their shoes and find out what it is that they want to hear. You write the introduction last. Now, actually, I'm going to go back to the introduction for a minute. I can spend 2 or 3 weeks with the speaker writing the introduction. That's an important piece. Once you know where you're going, then you're going to write the introduction that leads into it. But it's also important to get it right, to get something interesting. You want an interesting hook, an idea that gets their attention. You tell them a little bit about yourself and what you've done, and maybe a little story about how you got here, and then state the overall problem that you're going to address in these talking points. This is the sort of thing that's very difficult to do on your own. It really helps to work with a coach and learn how to make it specific to you. What is it going to be that's going to make your idea fit into this framework? My favorite talking point formula is the problem, solution, and benefit. This is a tried and true formula, and this is where I always start. What's the problem? So you state the problem so people recognize, they know what you're talking about. Then you say the solution, your solution, that would be one of your talking points. And most importantly, you say, so that you get, what's the benefit? It's all too easy to state the problem and then just go on to the solution and tell people what to do. That's how you lose their attention. You want to show them what's in it for them. What's the benefit? Why should they do what you want them to do? If you spell out what they'll get, they're more likely to listen. There are many, many variations on this, but this is always a good place to start. Here's another pro tip. Which point would you talk about first? Say you have talking point A, which is your strongest, your best point. Talking point B is medium strong, and talking point C is strong, but the least strong of the other two. You might think that you start with your strongest and finish with your weakest. But indeed, the optimal order, the best order, is to start with the medium one and end with the strongest. Now, there's strategy involved here. You want something, the medium point is strong enough to get their attention. So you want to start with a talking point that is good enough to get their attention. You want to end with the talking point, which is the absolute strongest, that gets them the juiciest, most exciting thing that you can say, so that when you get to your call to action, when you get to your conclusion, they're all fired up. They're all excited. Talking point C, the middle one, is your safety valve. This is the one where it would be useful. You can certainly tell the story. But if you're running low on time, you should be able to say it in 1 or 2 sentences. When in doubt, always do your strongest point, do the full version of your strongest point. That's going to be the thing that they remember. The thing you say last, that's going to be the one that they remember. If you are supposed to be doing a speech and the person before you has run overtime, so that you have to shorten your speech, then the middle one, talking point C, is your safety valve. There's a lot more about this. With my individual clients, but this will give you an idea how to think about it. Here are 2 more bonuses to the 5-point formula. First of all, you've got problem, solution, benefit. You would add for each talking point, make sure that you are addressing the yeah, but moments. Those are the small objections, the little things that they're not going to absolutely walk away and reject you, but they're saying, yeah, but for instance, when I talked about thinking about your speech like jazz, that is to answer the yeah, but. I find that for many of my clients, especially the creative clients, if I give them a formula, they'll go, yeah, but I don't want to be restricted. I don't want to be stuck in a box. And yet they do need to have a formula. I've been in this business long enough to know that. So the yeah, but, answering the yeah, but is to think of your speech like jazz. There are many, many other ways of doing it. Again, go use strategic empathy, put yourself in the shoes of your listeners. And as you have written, as you're in the process of writing, go through and say, where would be the small things that they would object to? The other bonus is telling stories. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to say the whole problem, solution, and benefit. Sometimes you can do it all in the form of a story. Stories are wonderful, and we will be talking about that a lot more in the next episode, which is about taking your speech from boring to bravo by using stories and metaphors. Human beings grow up hearing stories from their parents. We are trained to listen for stories from our earliest childhood, and people retain stories more than they retain facts. So for each talking point, Be prepared with something that might add to the yeah, that would answer a yeah, but, and a story that would illustrate it. You might not use all of them on every talking point, but be prepared. This actually is what you want to do if you find out you need to extend your speech and speak for longer. If you've got the stories prepared, and a yeah, but, answering a yeah, but is a story, then you can add those in to extend your speech longer than you had planned. Again, yeah, but, and stories and metaphors. I'll go into that a lot more in the next lesson, Transform Your Speech from Boring to Bravo. That's just an overview, a basic overview of how to write a script that wows. Remember, as you're thinking about this, as Mark Twain said, the difference between a word and the right word is like the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning. You have something to say. Saying it well and in a compelling and charismatic way is a great strategy to use speaking to get results. So I urge you, decide to write this speech. Go out and be the lightning. That's the end of this episode. If you are curious how your presentation skills are doing, you can go to our free 4-minute assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where you can see where you are strong with your presentation skills and where perhaps a little bit of support might get you the results you need and the recognition you deserve. This has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'm delighted to be speaking with you, and I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes, and thanks for tuning in.